Hello, everyone that's joining us. I'm really excited to be on tonight, and this is something I've been looking forward to for a long time, working on for a while. So it's exciting to be here and to be introducing all of you to this new book. It's interesting. As I've been preparing for this presentation tonight, I've been going back through all the chapters and finding, topics, high points and, things that I really want to emphasize and discuss tonight. And as I've been going through it, I've thought, this is a good book. And I'm, I'm not just saying that because I wrote it. It really is a good book. This is a book that actually I would want to read myself. And it's probably because I wrote it myself that I would want to read it, but there is really so much valuable content in here, and so I'm just excited to share it with you tonight. The tagline on the book is Self-Sufficient Living, a 12-step guide to help you gain security through learning to provide for yourself. And that's really what I'm going to share tonight, and really what the book is all about is learning to provide for yourselves. But more than that, it's the security piece. It's what does this bring you as you are providing for yourself. So I'm just excited to share this with you tonight. As always, I like to start on time, so we are going to get going. We have a lot of people that are registered for this event. I'm sure they're going to be jumping on here quickly, so I'm going to just get into the intro part. I calculated myself. I thought, okay, I have 4.6 minutes that I can talk about each chapter, so I won't be keeping that much track. But I want to cover really what this book is about, what it's going to share, what you're going to learn from it, and really what I hope you share with others from the book as well, because that's what it's all about. Why did I start on this path? That's an interesting question. I've always been self sufficient. It's something that I just have felt inclined to do, whether it's self sufficient living from a standpoint of being very independent and doing things for myself, all the way through school, through work and establishing a business. And I've just always taken my own path, if that makes sense. And I had a lot of examples of that growing up. I really spent a lot of time working with my mom in the kitchen, working with my mom, canning with my mom, making bread. My mom would be sewing late into the night. I would learn from her. I'm the oldest of five children, and I often was the one doing things along with her or for her. And that's just something I've always done. And then I remember long days, canning with my grandparents, with my grandma and all of my mom's sisters. My mom's there's 8 girls and one boy in her family, a family of 9. I remember all of my maternal aunts sitting together and freezing corn for the year. I remember eating my grandma's pickled beets and just a lot of different things that I watched through the years. I remember my other grandma always taking us to thrift stores. Even though she could have afforded to take us anywhere, probably she would take us to thrift stores, and that's where we would get things when we were with her, or eating in a cafeteria instead of another kind of restaurant with my grandfather. Just a lot of things that I watched and observed as I was growing up. And as I left home, that fascination just continued. I actually worked at a nursery, or greenhouse, a retail greenhouse, between undergraduate and dental school. That really is where I think my love of gardening and growing things got nourished and fed, and that started there. When I was in dental school, I had an interesting thing. I made all of my own clothes, or a lot of my own clothes. I either bought them from thrift stores, or I told my husband there was this fabulous store. I went to school in Omaha, Nebraska, and there was this fabulous store that had all of these they were new clothes, but new clothes that were missing buttons or had a seam torn or something like that. And so they were selling them for next to nothing. Well, I told my husband that it was the perfect location for this store because it was right next door to a fabric store. So I would buy, and I even remember some of the things I bought there. I would buy a jacket and it was missing a button. So I'd take it next door to the fabric store. I'd find some buttons that worked with it, and I'd take it home and I'd sew on the button. And I got an item for just pennies on the dollar of what I could spend. So these were things that I did all the way through dental school as well. I had a funny story that I've often shared with people about while in dental school. I would often go to thrift stores, and I would find fabric there to be able to make clothing. So I would find drapes and tablecloths, and sometimes I would just find big bolts of fabric for almost no money at all. And where I lived in the town of Omaha, it was a very, oh, more of a depressed area. It was where I could afford to live during the time. And there were a lot of thrift stores in the area, which I loved because those were my kind of stores. And so that's what I would frequent. Well, I bought some fabric and I made some pants out of this fabric. And these pants I thought were great. They were kind of flowy and long. And so I wore them to school one day. And this was dental school. And on that day, my professor, he looked at me and he said, I swear my mom had drapes of that fabric in her dining room while I was growing up. And I about died because I thought, I bet you I'm wearing his mother's drapes. So anyway, I didn't wear those pants to school ever again. And I was a little more, careful about what things I would make things out of because that was a funny story. But that was just something that I've always been inclined to do. I've canned food always through dental school as well. This is a story I always tell about canning. I I didn't know that when my mom made salsa, she would always use a food processor. I didn't have a food processor. So I just chopped up all my hot peppers, not realizing that the oils in the hot peppers will burn your skin. So I sat the entire night crying with my hands in bowls of ice water because my hands were literally on fire. I've since also learned that the bowls of ice water were the worst thing to do because they were actually driving the oils deeper into my skin. Live and learn. Anyway, I've done a lot of canning. I've done a lot of food preserving, a lot of making things for myself. I've just really loved this. As we moved into our existing home, one of the priorities for this home that we live in now was actually having a root cellar. Well, we couldn't ever find a home that had an existing root cellar. They just don't exist anymore. So again, one of my requirements was I had to be able to at least have a place that we could build a root cellar. So we built a root cellar into a side basement area near our home after we moved in. Well, we've had a lot of misadventures in that root cellar and learned a lot. And as I go through these misadventures or learning experiences, as I call them, first of all, I'm always very grateful that I'm learning these things when my family's not depending on it for their food. And I can make a mistake and it doesn't cost my family dearly like it would if that was the only food that we had. That's really one of the keys that I want to share with you as well is it's so important to learn as you go and start practicing these things even now because when there's a difficult thing going on like a pandemic, let's say, or worse, that's not the time to start learning. So these are things I have been practicing my entire life and I really just feel like I'm an old soul. I've always been attracted to these things. I've always wanted to learn more about them. And as I've gone through these adventures, like when I built a root cellar, well, there's not just anybody around the block who can teach you how to build a root cellar because a lot of people don't do it anymore. I had to go to old journals and old records and find things online and look in old books to find out how do you build a root cellar? What do you do to keep it from going moldy? How do you keep a consistent temperature? How do you let draft coming, air flow happen in your root cellar? Just a whole bunch of things. And as I've done that, my learning style is very much reading. I love to read and I'm a fast reader and I take in the information. And that's really what I want to do for you in this book is as I've done the things that I'm going to teach you to do, I've pulled together a lot of information from days of old, people that have come before us and have pulled that information back into today's modern world and put it into context of the way we live today. There's a lot of what they were doing in those days that we shouldn't have forgotten, but we have. So that's really my goal here is I like to say, we're going to turn over an old leaf. We're going to go back to some of those ways and some of those things that people were doing before. And my whole platform is Living Well with Dr. Michelle. I really believe that turning back to some of these ways really leads to living well. Not only from a security standpoint, because you will have better security for your family, you will feel safer when it's this way. But you know what? There's just a lot of pleasure in living like this. There's a lot of pleasure in doing a lot of these things. And I think you're going to just love this book. I think you're going to love the things that I share and teach in here. And I'm excited about that. Really, this book puts all these pieces from here and here and here and here and things you may have done or things you may have seen or researched or studied or watched grandparents do and puts it into a lifestyle. That's what I want to do for you is really put it into a lifestyle. So why did I write this book? I like this slide because it's an ostrich putting its head in the sand, right? I was really compelled to write this book. I was pushed to write this book. I finished the sister book in December of 2020, which was just 4 short months ago. I finished Be Prepared, Not Scared. And it wasn't the beginning of December. It was about the third week in December, I finished that book. I have written every single word of this 350 page book that you now have, Self-Sufficient Living. I've written every single word since that December date. So in less than 4 months, this entire book has come into creation. How did that happen? Well, I can tell you right now, it wasn't all me. There was a lot of information I already knew that was inside of me that I'd gathered resources from for the years, but I really believe that I have a Heavenly Father that's been pushing me to do this because you all need to know this. You and so many more people. So I really hope that you share. This is not for my own purposes. This is for your purposes and their purposes. Please share this book. I was supposed to write it. I needed to write it. I had a lot of crazy nights and crazy early mornings because I had goals. I just felt like I needed to get it done. So I've spent a lot of time in the last 3.5 months writing this book, and I hope you take these words and really put them into use, put them into your life. And the reason I have this picture of the ostrich on the screen is because you can stick your head in the sand right now and you can pretend that there aren't things going on in our world, but it's not true. None of us have been sticking our heads in the sand. We know that things are changing in our world. Things we once depended on are gone. We can't just depend that we're going to be safe from disease. We can't just depend that we're going to be able to buy whatever we want, whenever we want it. This is not a political discussion, and I won't go into politics whatsoever, but there's a lot that has changed in our world. When you're in the middle of change, like we are, if you're in the middle of an emergency or a situation that's completely changed a paradigm, like a pandemic, that's really not the time to start incorporating these things into your life. Now is the time to start incorporating these things into your life. Now is the time to start making this a lifestyle piece. I'm really, again, I think this is why I've been so compelled and pushed to do this, is because we're running out of time a bit. The world's changing and we need to be prepared for those changes. We need to be prepared to face them and to help our children and our parents and our friends and our family face them. And these are ways that are going to help you do that. Now, behind me right now, I don't know if you can even see it, you probably not. I have a huge library actually over here to the side. There's another one downstairs. I love books. And I was told some years ago that I'm a translator, that I have the ability to take a lot of information and sometimes confusing information or even conflicting information and put it into usable instruction. And that's again really what both of the books have attempted to do. Be Prepared, Not Scared, and this one, Self-Sufficient Living, is to take this information and put it into a usable format. So what usable? Well, we'll get to the usable format in just a second. First of all, thank you so much for being here. I'm just so appreciative that you're here and that I can share this with you today. There's something I would love to offer you. We're going to be talking about backyard animals in the book. That's I believe it's chapter 9. And so I'm going to do a hands-on live backyard chickens event in May 15th here on the homestead from 4 to 5:30. So we're going to give you a discount for being here tonight to be able to come to the backyard chicken event. Now, if you live nowhere near me, we're going to also have a virtual live virtual option to do this as well. So you'll be able to come visit the chickens with me. And then as well, if you will please leave a review. If you think that authors make $1 million selling books, you're not correct. There's actually very little money that's made in selling books. However, that's not my reason. My reason for doing this is to share information with you and all those you know. So that's the benefit of having an Amazon review. You know how it works. When you go onto Amazon and you look at buying something, if you see something that has a bunch of reviews, and it sounds like information you're interested in, you're going to buy it more frequently than you are something that doesn't have any reviews. So this is simply so that I can get in front of more people. So if you can help me, I would love that and so appreciate it. If you like the book, please say that you do. I would love that. Share that with others. And as a thank you, just let us know. And the emails that you get, you can always email back to those and let us know. And we have a challenge guide we're going to give you for free. That's a digital version of the challenge guide that'll walk you through the challenges for the year or however long you want to take it. There's also a program involved. So we're going to send you information on this. It's a members only masterclass throughout the year. I'm going to be covering all these topics in depth because today I'm going to cover them very briefly. So I'm going to be covering all these topics in depth over the coming year. So if you want to be a part of that, if you want to learn more, it's all free. Please sign up from the email we're going to send you. So now, how is this book arranged? All these books that I'm writing are 12-step books, simply because it's an easy way for me to say, you know what, you can take a topic a month and you can focus on that topic. And that's really the way I love to do things. I focus tightly on one thing so that I can intensely work on it. Then I pull the focus back, and the next month I focus tightly on another thing so I can focus intently on that. Does it have to be done a month at a time? Absolutely not. Some of these topics are actually really large. So it may be that you take 3 months. That's fine. I just like to chunk it up into these manageable topics and manageable pieces. At the beginning of each chapter, you're going to have a toolbox. I have chosen 3 tools that you're going to learn each chapter or each section. And those tools are the things that I'm going to dive deeply in the book. At the back of the book, you're going to have some resources. Those are often resources regarding the information that I'm sharing with you. Where did I find it? Specifically research, those sorts of things to back it up. There's also resources where you can buy things that I reference or find sourcing for that. At the end of each chapter, there's going to be self-sufficiency challenges. There will be a self-sufficiency challenge related to every toolbox item. This is so you can really hone in on the change you need to make in that area. Now, you can choose your own challenges. This doesn't mean these are the challenges you have to do, but it just gives you some ideas. And then this book's a little different than my last. This book has what I'm calling family features in it. So each of my family members has written 2 family features to add into the book, into each chapter. So each chapter has 1 or 2 family features. Excuse me. These are pieces that my family has a little bit of an insider view of or another take on. And they're sharing with you information on how to also incorporate this with your family. So I will tell you that the most entertaining ones are from my youngest son, Luke. He sent me his family features and I cracked up reading them. First of all, because he's very honest and he's like, well, you can change them if you want. I said, well, I'm not going to change them, Luke, because this is honest. He said, things like I hate weeding and excuse me, and chickens aren't really that hard. Any kids can do it. I mean, it's just really quite entertaining. So you'll enjoy his family features, but hopefully you'll enjoy all the family features. And the kids are excited that they're published authors now. Okay, let's get started into chapter 1. Again, like I said, each chapter has 3 target toolbox items that we're going to cover. I'm just going to go quickly through them to give you an overview of what's available. So chapter 1 is talking about get your house in order. My personality is such that I just like to dive in. But sometimes if you dive in, you actually have a lot of unfulfilled or unreached dreams. How many people do you know that said, oh, I wish I could have, backyard animals. Oh, I wish I could have a great garden. Oh, I wish I could be more self-sufficient. Oh, I wish I didn't have to spend so much money, whatever it might be. Well, what stops those wishes from happening? Why don't they happen? These, I believe, are 3 biggies that get in the way of things not actually happening that we wish for. The first is organization. Sometimes just getting your house in order, just getting your life in order is needed to be able to start and embark on a new pathway. So I talk about some things, literally dejunking your house, minimizing, downsizing, some of those things. The more stuff you have, the more time it takes to manage it, clean it, move it, organize it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you want more room in your life to be able to be self-sufficient, you have to create it. You have to actually create it. So I give you some tools and tips. One of my daughter-in-laws, Brooklyn, is amazing at organizing, and she's given you some great tools in there as well. That was her family feature. Budgeting. All right, money is often the stumbling block. People say, oh, I want to do that, but I don't have the money to do it. Well, the good news is a lot of what I'm going to share in this book requires very little or even less money than you're currently spending on the things that you are currently using or consuming. So that's a huge point of this, is not only is this not going to cost you more money, the hope of this is it's going to save you quite a bit of money and really build wealth in the areas that matter. That's the last chapter. We'll get to that at the very end of this. The third one is talking about fixing things up. Now, we are in an information age. If you need to learn how to do anything, let's say you need to learn how to fix a leaky faucet, you could call somebody, and most likely a house call alone is going to cost, I don't know, 70 bucks maybe, plus then the repair costs, plus the parts costs, all those things connected together. Well, the trouble is you don't need to do that. You don't need to use that money, that hard-earned money to do that. You can provide those things for yourself. And the information that you need is at the touch of your fingertips. It literally is on YouTube. How many videos do you think there are on YouTube about fixing a leaky faucet? Hundreds, I would dare bet. I didn't look it up, but hundreds, I would bet. So these are things that you just simply need to learn how to do yourself. Now, I've given you a list of things you can start with, and you may know how to do them already. But if you can just a little here, a little there, do some self-sufficiency things. You know, it was interesting. My son, his car battery died. And so my husband took him to the auto parts store. They bought a battery together. They replaced the battery. And my son said, well, that was easy. Yeah, that was really easy, and it saved him a bunch of money from going somewhere. So just pick a thing now or then, and ask somebody. Maybe you have a family member, maybe you have a friend who's really great at it. Just fix it up and learn how to do some things yourself. So these are just some starting things to get you prepared. All right, chapter 2 is waste not, want not. I have to tell you, this is probably one of my very favorite chapters in the entire book. In fact, while I was writing it, I kept telling myself I would read this book. I love this book. I love the information here. So, again, what I'm going to share with you is not about spending more money. I have an example that I use in here about my grandma's bread. So my grandma made a bread that was just literally, stories were told about this bread. It was absolutely delicious. She made this bread in an old Tupperware cake saver. It really wasn't even a bowl. She would make it by hand and she would make it by feel. So she didn't really have a recipe. She had one kind of, I got it from her later, but she just could tell how much flour she needed. And she would make this bread every single week. Everybody loved this bread. She had 9 children, so she had to make a lot of bread. Well, I remember every single time she would pull the bread out from the counter, it was always in Wonder Bread bags. And I didn't understand, why did she have Wonder Bread bags? She made bread every single week. Well, I'm sure sometimes she bought Wonder Bread, but she saved those bags and she reused those bags week after week after week after week. That's the kind of thing I'm talking to you about. You don't have to spend money to do this. You actually can save money because it's about thinking, how can I use my things in a different way? How can I waste not? I found some really interesting statistics that were quite staggering. 80 billion pounds of food is thrown away per year in the US. 80 billion pounds per year. 40% of the US's food supply is wasted each year. Did you hear that? 40% of the US's food supply is wasted every single year. That's 219 pounds per person per year. $1,600 per household is wasted just in produce alone. Think about what we could do with that kind of excess, that kind of surplus. We could feed everyone in the world many times over if we weren't wasting. Why do we do this? Why do we waste food? So I go into a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is super fascinating. I love this kind of thing. Is safety, right? We think, oh, it's past its expiration date. Oh, it's been in my counter too long, or, whatever it might be. Did you know that more often than not, those dates refer to quality, not safety? So everything except for infant formula, they actually don't have an expiration date. They have a best buy date. And those are very subjective. I tell a story in here about milk in Montana. Has a half the length of time to go to a best buy date. So in Montana, the milk will only be good for 12 days, it says, after pasteurization. Well, whereas every other state, it's good for 25 days. So in Montana, probably half the milk is actually wasted that would have been used still in other states. Why? Is it more safe in Montana? No, it's just the rules. It doesn't mean that it has anything to do with safety. There's so many little pieces like this that are very interesting to know. Most foodborne illness is actually along the routes of food supply, the grower, the handler. It's not from you having something in your fridge too long, but yet we throw it out. We just don't even realize how much we throw out. That's food. Energy. The US wastes enough energy every year to power the UK for almost 7 years. That's so much energy wasted. So I give you a whole bunch of strategies to reduce this energy waste. Everything from, let me give you an example. There's one, turning down your thermostat. Did you know that for every degree you turn down your thermostat, you can reduce your energy usage by 2 to 3%? 2 to 3% adds up over a year. Did you know that 2.5 gallons of water are used per minute in the shower? So if you install a low flow shower head in your shower, you're going to be able to save gallons of water every single time you shower. Just little things like this, just being aware. How could you save without even knowing it in your household? So one of the things that we did when we started really thinking about this is I did away with paper towels. I didn't want to have paper towels anymore. I thought those are wasteful. And you use one to wipe up a little tiny spill and then you throw the whole thing away. So we just did away with paper towels in the kitchen. It's really quite funny actually to have people visit us because they'll be helping cook and whatever. And they'll go, "Oh, where's your paper towels?" I say, "Oh, we don't have paper towels in my home." And they look at me like I have 5 heads. What? Well, what do you do? So we just use real towels in my home. We just use real towels here. So let's just wipe the spill up here and then we just wash the towel out or we get a new towel or whatever it might be. So anyway, just little things like that, just being aware. Clothing. I love thrift store shopping. I absolutely love it. And so I actually give you a thrift store shopping primer, how to shop at thrift stores, what to look for, how to do it quickly, how to find things that are going to last, how to look for quality, just things like that, because it's one of the things I absolutely adore. These are ways to waste not. And if we waste not, we want not. And the world wants not. This is really being world friendly as well. Chapter 3 is all about cooking your own food. This chapter is long because I've included a lot of information. I've included my entire 30-minute meal formula ebook in here for you. I've included a whole bunch of recipes, but the way I start out talking in this book is some of the reasons why you should cook your own food. Obviously, for saving money, those things people know. But did you realize that there is a lot of nutrition lost when food has been transferred, processed, turned into something else, that food isn't really full of nutrients anymore? It's a lot like filling up your car, your gas tank, filling up your gas tank with water. The tank is full, so shouldn't your car run? Well, unfortunately not. It actually requires fuel to run, right? It doesn't just require that your gas tank is full. Same thing for you. You don't need to just be full to run well. You actually need to be full of fuel to run well. And cooking your own food really helps you ensure that you're going to get fuel, not just food. So there's a lot of things that I share in here, starting with planning. You have to be able to plan these meals to be able to really provide these meals for your family. So I'll walk you through what I do every single week. I joke that I want to write a book called 2 Crock Pots and a Rice Cooker because I can't tell you how many nights I come home from work and there's 2 crock pots and a rice cooker. Now there's only 1 crock pot and a rice cooker because we have a lot of family members who've actually moved on to their own households now. But 2 crock pots and a rice cooker was our go-to for a lot of years. And it enables me to have food that, provide food for my own family, even if I'm working full days. Keep it simple. So key. We're not on cooking shows. We don't have to Instagram our food. Just keep it simple. Use the same ingredients all week long. Start off slow. And, I call it from scratch-ish. Scratch-ish means cooking a soup and maybe you use some boxed chicken broth. You know what? That's scratch-ish. That's scratch cooking. But it uses a simpler version, maybe a modern day helper version of some things to make your food a little faster. Again, that 30-minute meal formula that I told you about is in here, including a whole bunch of recipes, how to get a meal to the table in 30 minutes or less. So yesterday, I made a great soup the night before, put it in the crock pot to put it in the morning. Well, I was running out of the door quickly in the morning, thought, okay, my husband will put the crock pot in. He did. He did a great job. He put the crock pot on and somehow didn't start it. So we got home yesterday at the end of the day. There was a crock pot sitting on the counter, but the food wasn't cooked. It was still uncooked in that crock pot. So we didn't have dinner. And then my son called and he said, "Hey, can we come over and visit tonight? And do you have dinner? Can we have dinner?" And I said, "Well, sure." So again, I had 30 minutes to the dinner table. What am I going to do? I don't have dinner ready. I have people coming over for dinner. So 30-minute meal formula. Those are my standards. One of my standards is always a salad. I have fresh greens in my greenhouse that I can make a salad. I had some things I could easily throw together, a quick Korean salad, and it was delicious. And nobody had to know that my dinner was something failed. They did because it was a funny story, but 30 minutes to the table easily. Making staples. That's also something I include. If you don't have to go to the store, you don't spend money. You notice that? If you don't actually go, you don't spend money. So if you can make your own bread, yogurt, milk, eggs, all these things, snacks, then you're going to be able to save money. So that's what this chapter really is all about. Next is gardening. Now, I have shared more about gardening than I have on anything else. So if you have been, following me at all, I love to garden and you may have already learned some things. Well, I share more in this chapter of this book than I have ever before. There is so much in here about gardening, and really it's going to be able to get you wherever you are to your next level. Why do we garden? Why do I love it so much? Really, this is a foundational piece to self sufficient living. If you can provide your own food, you can go a long way, even during times of emergency or struggle, or, perhaps you're out of work or whatever it might be. If you can provide your food, security really improves. You feel a lot better about your situation. Um, in the last couple of weeks, I haven't gone to the grocery store at all. It's been a week since I've gone to the grocery store, and I'm eating mostly food from the garden right now, or food that I've stored from the garden. And really, what I'm finding and what I'm learning a lot about food is that the plants themselves mine the nutrients from the soil. They pull them up into the roots and then they pull them up into the part that we eat. So the food that we grow ourselves is exponentially more nutritious than the food we can get from a grocery store. And I'm going to explain why. In agriculture, what's happened is they figured out that if they can do what's called a monocrop, so they grow the same thing in a field year after year after year. If they can grow a monocrop, it actually saves them money. They only have to use the same equipment, the same supplies, the same everything for that piece of land. Unfortunately, that's not how the land works. The land provides nutrients for the crop, and each crop requires something different. So let's say that corn is always grown on the same field. Well, year after year after year, there's going to be no more nutrients that corn needs left in that soil. It's going to be completely devoid of nutrients. So what do these conventional farmers do? Well, they will spray with artificial fertilizer, with synthetic fertilizers to give the plant what it needs to be able to grow. It's not nutrients, it's fertilizer. It's nitrogen, phosphate, potassium. These aren't nutrients necessarily that we need. These are just fertilizers that help the plant to grow. Now, oftentimes there'll be pest issues, so that requires pesticides. There'll be weed issues that requires herbicides. And what it does is it in effect sterilizes the soil. All of these things, all of these pesticides kill the soil, kill the bugs in the soil that also mine those nutrients from the rocks and feed them to the plants. This is all a very happy system as long as we allow it to grow. Well, in conventional agriculture, it's not allowed to grow. So you get food that's very devoid of nutrients. Again, it's like filling your gas tank with water. Your car won't go. Your body won't work well if it's filled with food that doesn't have a lot of nutrients. So growing your food is ensuring that you are actually providing food to your body that has what you need in it. This is another thing about tilling that's really interesting. So people will often ask when I teach them about gardening, they say, well, you don't till your ground? No, I don't till my ground. And the reason is when you till the ground, it actually opens up a fresh flush of oxygen to the soil, which is great. Soil microbes go crazy, and a lot of carbon, which comes from the air, carbon that's been stored in the ground is released into the air. Well, it's more than really what your plants needs. Your plants can't use it all, and so it gets depleted. You till year after year after year, and you lose all of those stored or banked nutrients in the soil. So tilling actually decreases the nutritional benefit of your soil as well. These are all things that I share because I want you to get the most out of your food. Now, in chapter 5, what I do is I go beyond even those basics of gardening. I really want to teach you, what do you do if you don't have a big yard? What do you do if you only have, 3 pots on a backyard table? What do you do? How do you grow that way? I'm really going to teach you how to do containers right. Winter gardening. What if you have a very short growing season? What if you have 2 different growing seasons? Actually, I'm not going to teach you that very well because I don't know it, because I only know one growing season, but there's lots of things that you can learn about that. How do you grow in the middle of winter? When Europe was going through the Industrial Revolution, London and Paris were turning into these giant cities. People stopped having backyard gardens anymore. Well, they had to be fed somehow. So they had these huge gardens outside of the city and they would grow year round. Well, how did they do it? They had to know. How did people do it before they had grocery stores? Did they just starve all winter long? Well, they would have died. So they had to have known. So I'm going to give you this information back. We're going to bring it back in today's world, because why not grow during the winter as well? They used to. Why can't we? What if all you have is an inside area to grow? You can actually grow things from cuttings. Again, my daughter-in-law, Brooklyn, this is one of the things that she shares with us in here, is how to grow some things from cuttings of vegetables that you already have purchased. It's the craziest thing, and it's so cool. How to sprout, how to do microgreens, all these kinds of things. I teach you how to save seed. That's the ultimate in self-sufficient living, because if you can take something, in fact, just today, I was cutting an orange and I was running into all these seeds. And these oranges come from my mother's backyard in Arizona. So they're not from a grocery store. And I thought, interesting. Oranges from grocery stores, they've actually bred the seeds out. Have you noticed that? There's very few seeds in those oranges. Well, how do we grow the next orange tree if we breed an orange that doesn't have a seed in it? Anyway, I started asking myself these funny questions like a seedless watermelon. How do we grow a new seedless watermelon if there's no seed to grow the seedless watermelon? Anyway, seeds are an essential part of self-sufficient living. Being able to take that orange is a bad example because it's harder to grow an orange tree. Take that watermelon, take a seed out of it, plant that seed, grow a new plant, and grow 15 more watermelons that have an exponential number of seeds in them. Talk about self-sufficient living. My very favorite book is called Animal Vegetable Miracle by Barbara Kingsolver. Anyone that knows me closely knows about this book because I'll tell them stories about it all the time. She talks about growing. So she actually has a year-long experiment where all she does is use things that are grown within 100 miles of her home. She doesn't allow herself to use anything else for an entire year. It's quite incredible. And she documents all of this and tells her stories. And she has a birthday, I believe it's in March. And they had a whole bunch of people. It was a big birthday. I think it was her 50th birthday. They had 100 people coming. They had to figure out how they were going to provide food for these people in March because nothing was growing. She lives in Virginia. Nothing was growing. Well, they ended up making spring rolls. One of the things they made was spring rolls, and they grew bean sprouts in a jar on their kitchen counter to fill these spring rolls. Just things like this. It's ways to really think beyond what we are so used to doing. Chapter 6, make your own supplies. Okay, this is a fun chapter because really think about, what do we buy? We buy food, we buy household items, and we buy self-care goods. If you think about the things that you purchase when you go to a store, that's the large majority of them. So let's figure out how to provide those things for ourselves. So what I'm teaching you in here is actually really fun. I'm teaching you all about soap. You know, have you ever heard, well, I was just telling my family about this the other day. The ways that they used to make soap were so difficult. They would actually have to take wood ash and they would boil it down for a full day, and it would turn into lye. They would mix lye with rendered fat from pigs and combine the two together, so oils and lye, and it would create soap. This was a all day, hot and sweaty, difficult thing to do. And not only that, they had already had to render the fat. They'd already had to, do all these things. And they talk about sometimes they had the good soap. The good soap was when the lye, when it's called saponification, and when the lye actually combined with the fat in a good way to make a mild soap. They didn't always make good soap, but can you imagine having to do all that work? We don't have to do that today. We can make our soap quite easily now because we can purchase lye. We don't have to boil down wood ashes to be able to do this. So you can make soap. I teach you how. I teach you how to make lotion, shampoo, conditioner, hand sanitizer, deodorant, toothpaste, mouth rinse, all of these things, beauty supplies, hair coloring. I have a funny story about that. I'll show you in just a second. Hair coloring, makeup, bug lotion, sunscreen, all of these things, as well as in your home. Did you know with vinegar, baking soda, some Castile soap, you can clean nearly every single thing in your home. So all of these things I'm going to give you recipes for. You do have to buy the ingredients. However, you can make so much with a thing of baking soda, a thing of vinegar, and some Castile soap. You can make probably 30 times more cleaning product than you can buy if you buy it in the bottles already pre-bottled, because a lot of that is very diluted out. I'm going to teach you how to make all the cleaners that you need, laundry, carpet care, all those things, as well as household products, things like dog food, baby diapers, cloth diapers, homemade baby wipes, all these kinds of things. These are things that you need in a life. So why not learn how to provide them for yourself? Now, my funny story about hair dye. So I wanted to figure out how to lighten my hair, and I wanted to do it naturally. So I learned about this technique that you could mix together apple cider vinegar, honey, and coconut oil. You could slather it all over your hair, wrap it in a towel, and go to bed. And then the next morning you wake up, wash it out, and your hair's supposed to be lighter. So I thought that sounds great. So I'm going to give it a try. Well, what it ended up with, first of all, is I was sleeping on this lumpy towel all night long, and I was worried that the towel was going to fall off and all the honey was going to smear all over my pillow and ruin my pillow. So I didn't sleep all night long. And then every time I rolled over, it just smelled like salad dressing from the apple cider vinegar. So anyway, it didn't really lighten my hair, but that's actually not in the book. I added other things in there that work. And that's really what we did. We've spent days having a lot of fun, my family and I, trying out all these recipes and using things and making sure that everything I teach to do actually works. And this is all that I use in my home now. And it's so fulfilling to go into a shower and go, there's my shampoo I made, there's my conditioner I made, there's my soap I made. I don't need to go to a store anymore. This is my actually, after I get out, then I brush my hair, and then I have some spray, like thickener, volumizer spray that I put on my hair. I mean, all these things I make myself, and it's just fun to be able to do these things for yourself. Make your own medicine. This is a huge one. So I talk in here about traditional versus modern medicine. And if you're not familiar with my story, I'll give you the super short version of it. Basically, I got sick from doing dentistry. I got sick with mercury poisoning, and I didn't know what it was. And modern medicine didn't have answers for me. I actually had to turn to traditional medicine to really find the answers that I was searching for and to get better. So that really helped me see the beauty in both sides. And in dentistry, I now have much more of a traditional approach to my dental practice than perhaps the modern dental approach. We use both though, and we combine them in a beautiful way. And that's really what I'm going to teach you to do in this as well, because all medicine comes from plants. It comes from living things. That's where all medicine comes from. So why not learn how to make your own? I'm going to teach you about medicine on your table. Did you know that a lot of the culinary herbs that we use, let's say basil, oregano, thyme, rosemary, those things, they all have medicinal uses as well. I'm going to teach you about those so that you can add medicine to your food without even knowing it. Instead, you just think you're making it taste delicious, which you are, but it's also medicine. I'm going to teach you how to grow these things so that you can grow medicine in your garden. I walk you through how to make medicine from herbs. So starting from a tea, how do you make a tea? And then using that tea to make a syrup. Then using oils, so you can use oil, you can make an herbal oil, and then using that oil to make a salve. Figuring out how to make an herbal tincture and how to make herbal pills. All these things, I'm going to walk you through this, as well as give you some recipes for this. I'm going to teach you about essential oils. What are they really? There's a lot of mystery around essential oils, but I'm going to teach you really what they are. Homeopathy. What in the world is that? How does it really work? That's what I'm going to teach you. And then the end of this chapter, I think, is the most important part of it. I give you recipes for a natural first aid kit, things you can have on hand, like wound healing salve, jet lag treatment, nausea, things for nausea, for colds, to boost your immune system, all that you make yourself. So that, I remember going on trips before, and I'll pack all of my medicines in a bag. That's not what we want to live our life like. Like, oh no, what if we get sick and we don't have the medicine we need? What if you can provide the medicine you need? That's what I want you to do in your self-sufficient life. Good health at home. Really, it's very, 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 very tragic. Just this week, I had a team member whose father had a really, really nasty fall on a mountain bike and just shattered his entire pelvis. Well, he's going to be laying in bed for a year as he recovers. What do you think his health is going to do? All of his muscles are going to atrophy. I mean, there's going to be a lot of challenges he's going to have coming out of that. Being self-sufficient is also being healthy enough to provide for yourself. So how can you stay healthy? Chapter 8 is about that. Most chronic diseases, this is a quote in the book actually, most chronic diseases that afflict Americans are predominantly lifestyle induced. So this was a quote from a research study. And, my question was, well, what do we do then? How do we change our lifestyle? These are the pieces that you can do to really improve your long-term health, which improves your self-reliance, your self-sufficiency. Food, how do you prepare it correctly? There's a lot of things that you need to do that we learn from the way they used to do it. Ways you need to handle the grains properly, ways you need to soak things and sprout things and ferment things. I teach you all of that so that you can really get all of the nutrient value out of the food as you're eating it. I give you recipes for things like granola, overnight sourdough pancakes, almonds, power bars, kefir, kombucha, kimchi, sourdough bread, how to use your sourdough discard. There's so much in here to not just think of food as food, but food as medicine, how to help it heal you and keep you healthy. Movement, that's another piece. Before about 100 years ago, no one exercised. Exercise wasn't a thing because life offered plenty of exercise. Unfortunately, nearly 50% of Americans today are actually classified as couch potatoes, which means moving less than 30 minutes a day. Well, when you do that, your body doesn't stay healthy. So we need to figure out ways. Now, I'm not a huge exerciser. I've never ever gone to a gym to just like work out. That's not what I do. If you do, fabulous, wonderful. But I'm actually going to teach you some options to do that you don't have to require, that don't require a gym, that don't require any expenditure, nothing at all. One of my very favorites is called Qigong. It's um, an exercise movement program to get your energy flowing. And so I do this every morning. And my favorite thing to do is to do this where other people can see me and I can embarrass my children. That's one of my favorites. We were on a trip recently and I did this at a rest stop right outside of our truck. I was doing Qigong in the parking lot and my kids thought they were going to die. But really, it's great to get your energy moving and it takes me 6 minutes a day. Can you find 6 minutes a day? I think you probably can. And then in the last part of this book, my son Josh shares a lot of information about things like breathing, EMFs. Do you even know what EMFs are? EMFs are called electromagnetic frequencies, and they are the things that we are bombarded with today, from cell phone frequencies to sitting in front of a laptop to the wiring in our walls, all the Wi-Fi that's surrounding us all the time. All of these things are actually very stressful on our bodies. And so what do you do to combat that? How do you help yourself with that? And I will give you some really easy tips to do, easy things to do that will really improve your health. Chapter 9 is about preserving your food. I love this chapter just because I have always loved preserving my food. I remember so many hours standing in the kitchen with my family, preserving our harvests, canning. I love canning. There's a lot of history with my canning. Now I have 3 canners and I have 6-burner stove. I have worked for this stove for a long time. And actually, when we moved into this home, we took out the old stove and I made room for a 6-burner stove. And the reason is because I can fit 3 canners on that stove at once. And if you've done any canning at all, you know that means that's a lot. I can process 21 cans at a time, which is fabulous because I have a lot of processing I do. So those 3 canners also mean a lot to me because when I first started canning, I started using what's called a water bath canner. And I talk in the book about this actually. And a water bath canner uses a lot of water, first of all, but it also uses a lot of time and a lot of energy from that stove. And my grandma said you need to use a steam canner instead. And I actually give you information and research about steam canners to show you they're safe in the book. But she said you need to get a steam canner, and she bought me a steam canner. So the steam canner I have, my grandmother purchased for me. Then when she passed away, I got her steam canner. And I also have my mother's steam canner because she doesn't can for just she and my father much anymore. So I have 3 generations of canners on my stove at a time. And so there's a lot of tradition there. And really, preserving food is very traditional because before refrigerators, before you can go to the grocery store and buy whatever you want 24/7, you have to save food. Why don't we do it too? Pressure canning, lots of things with meats and broths and things you can provide for yourself if you do that. Smoking, brining, and curing meat. I've started doing this where I've learned a lot about curing meat on my own because there's a lot of concern about store cured meats that use nitrates and nitrites. I actually talk about that in the book as well, and how you can do it without those commercial curing products and make your meat a lot healthier if you're going to use meat. The root cellar, I teach you about that. There's just so much that goes into preserving, and I love it. I could talk to you for hours about that alone. Backyard animals. This is a fun one. So why do we have backyard animals? Really, they provide 3 important things for a homestead. First of all, they provide pasture control or just taking care of your homestead. Often they keep down the weeds and the bushes and the brambles and whatever it might be. They provide a lot of fertility. So the poop from these animals provides amazing fertility for the garden. And then they can also provide products, whether it be meat or eggs or fur. They provide a lot of products for the homestead as well. Now, when I first started looking into animals, I was terrified of backyard animals. We had never had anything other than a dog growing up. I grew up in actually a very agricultural area, and people had cows and things, but they were big grazing things. They were out in these big fields behind their yard, and it wasn't like they were in their backyard. And so I didn't really even know how to do it. So we dove into chickens, and I was nervous at first and learning how, and then I realized, oh my, these are easy. This is a fabulous way to add a lot, and I wouldn't do without chickens now. They provide so much value to our homestead. I really consider chickens the gateway animal. They're a way you can have 2 or 3 chickens in your backyard. You can be getting eggs. They can be providing nutrients and fertility. They can be composting your scraps. They can do a lot of good. They're just like part of the family, basically. So in here, I'm going to teach you about these animals. I'm going to teach you about their housing needs. I'm going to teach you about different breeds that you can get and why you would. I'm going to teach you how to make food for them, including homemade food. I'm going to teach you how to keep them healthy. A lot of different things. And the 3 I'm focusing on in here are chickens, goats, and rabbits. So we had goats for quite some time. We actually don't currently for a couple of different reasons, but I loved the goats. I loved the goats and I loved the milk that they provided. But I didn't realize that if you're going to have milking goats, you need to continue breeding the goats because that's how they continue providing milk. For some reason, I just never put 2 and 2 together. So we bred our goats. We had a whole bunch of girls. Actually, we had 6 girls. 6 girls. We had 2 mamas. One had 1 girl, one had 3 girls. So all of a sudden we turned from 2 mamas into 6 mamas. So all of those goats bred one fall and all but one got pregnant. So we had 15 babies born that spring. Well, I'm only on an acre. So you can all of a sudden do the math, how that worked out. My husband and I looked at each other and we said, we did not realize what we were getting into. Because you have to separate the mamas and the babies. So we divided our barn into 2 inside, and because it was February, we had 2 places of babies there. We turned 2 dog runs into baby and mama holders. We turned our garage into a place for babies and mamas. It was insanity. So I don't recommend doing that. But there are lots of ways to add these things to your life. And you know what? They're a lot of fun too. They're work, but they're a lot of fun. Chapter 11 is about eating locally and seasonally. I just did a cooking class. It was such a fun cooking class for high schoolers and middle schoolers. And one of the things, well, 2 of the things that I was cooking on the middle school days were sticky rice and mangoes, because I wanted to teach them about some Asian food. And I knew that they would love that. And then guacamole, because who doesn't like guacamole, right? And unfortunately, I was doing this in March. And what I forgot is that neither avocados or mangoes are in season in March. It cost me $32 to buy 1 mango and 5 avocados. $32. Okay, that was not very wise. That was not buying locally or seasonally. If you can eat locally and seasonally, it's going to save you a ton of money. Not only that, but the food's going to be where you live. It's going to be good for your body at the time that it grows. So right now, I am growing a ton of greens. That's what grows in the spring is greens. Why do greens grow in the spring where I live? Because our bodies, I have this winter body. It's been living through the winter and it needs to detox from the heavy foods we eat during the winter time. Greens are an amazing detox, as well as they're being light and they clean us all out. So I should be eating a lot of greens right now. And I am. We're eating a ton of greens right now. And if you'll notice, your bodies actually crave these things at the right time. Well, come August, I will not be eating a lettuce salad anymore. Why? Because lettuce is not growing in my garden in August. Other things are growing in my garden in August that my body needs. If you start paying attention to what grows where you live and when it grows, eating it then, first of all, you're going to save money because it's going to be a lot less expensive. You're going to be able to buy it in bulk or grow it in bulk and then preserve what you have as extra. And your body is going to be healthier because of it. I really believe that you should eat what you grow, where you grow it, where it's grown. You should eat it in the amounts it's grown it in the form that it's grown in. So if it's an apple, you should eat it as an apple rather than many other things that it can be turned into. Our bodies adapt to our environment, and that's what your body needs right now. Buy in bulk when available because it's going to be a lot less money and you're going to be able to preserve for the future. And then I also include a lot of seasonal recipes in this chapter, things that you can grow as the seasons progress. And this is a total side note, that I'm going to be having a spring garden to table cooking class in June, where I teach you all about all the things that we're cooking and eating in our home right now, which are absolutely to die for delicious. All of the things that you do with lettuce, besides just salad, all the things you do with Asian greens, all the things you can do with peas and potatoes and broccoli, and all of these delicious things, fresh garlic, fresh onions, that feeds your body. Okay, the last chapter, we're almost there, is creating your self-sufficient lifestyle. Now, when I first started writing this chapter, I'm trying to even remember where I was. I was on a trip somewhere. I believe I remember now where I was. I was on a trip and I was riding on the airplane. And unfortunately with COVID, it's for some reason ruined everything, including internet on airplanes. I don't know why that's happened, but somehow I'd written about maybe a third of the chapter and the entire thing disappeared, was completely gone. And I was so distraught because it was hours of work. It was hours of work. And I had planned on getting a certain amount done on that flight. And I was very upset. And then as I started thinking about it, I thought, you know what? I think I was writing the wrong chapter. All I was really writing about was saving money, how to save money. That's how I thought, well, creating a self-sufficient lifestyle, it's all just about saving money. I realized that's not about it. It was actually about creating wealth. So there's something interesting. Have you ever watched a Hallmark movie? If you've watched even 2 Hallmark movies, 3 Hallmark movies, you know there's a consistent theme to these movies. It is about somebody that lives in the city that becomes dissatisfied with their life and they move to the country and they buy an inn or something like this or a store, and they struggle and they meet somebody there and they fall in love, and then they decide they want to live there for the rest of their life. This is pretty much the storyline of every Hallmark movie. So why is it that we watch them? Why is it that that's something that we're attracted to? I think it's because there's a lot of wealth missing in our lives. Our world is very predominantly focused on money, on creating money, saving money, making money, all of these things. But we don't talk a lot about wealth. What's the difference? I really want to show you that you can have that Hallmark movie life. You can have that life in the life that you're currently living. You don't have to leave your life and leave your high paid job in the city to move to the inn in the country. You don't have to do that. You can just change some things about the way you're living, where you're living, and you can become self-sufficient and have wealth in your life. Really, wealth is the total value of things in your life that you care about. That's what wealth is. And that's what this kind of life brings to you, is more things that you care about. And as you go through this, what I think you're going to find 2 things. You probably need a lot less money than you think. And number 2, you need a whole lot more than money to actually be wealthy. I know a lot of people who have a lot of money and they're not necessarily happy or wealthy, what I would consider wealthy. That's not living well. Again, back to the very beginning thing I said, living well is about living in a way that you can provide for yourself. You get satisfaction in that. You find joy in the things that you surround yourself with, and you have more of those things. That's wealth. So now in the book, I am going to teach you money saving techniques, a lifestyle to focus on the things that bring wealth rather than money. I'm going to teach you how to make money on your homestead, because money does help in this kind of life, right? But I'm going to teach you how to make money doing these things. I'm going to teach you how to shop at thrift stores, how to shop online classifieds. And you think, well, I know how to do that. Good. I'm glad. And I hope you're doing it more and more and more. Part of what I really think about in the self-sufficient world as well is that there's a lot of things already in this world. We've already created a lot of things. Why do we keep creating more? Why can't we just reuse what we already have? That's what I love about online classifieds, is that somebody has I don't know what it is, a mattress. I'm just looking around the room I'm in. Somebody has a mattress. They don't need it anymore. It's very lightly used. Why do we need to make a new mattress? Why can't we just use that mattress in another home? Those sorts of things. So why not reuse? That's part of a self-sufficient life as well. The final challenge in the book is what I call my $100 month. Now, I have done this multiple times, and it's one of my favorite things to do. We give ourselves a budget of $100 for the entire month. Now, it doesn't include, this is all we can spend for the month. It doesn't include our fixed expenses. So that's not going to include the mortgage, the utilities payment, the things that we have to pay every single month. And it doesn't include transportation costs. So that doesn't include gas. We take those things out, but everything else has to cost $100 or less for the month. That's food, that's entertainment, that's any other expendables, that's home care products, beauty care, anything like that has to fit in that $100 box. You have to get extremely creative to be able to do this. But you know what? I enjoy these months almost more than anything. I always pick a month that we're gardening because then I know food's free and plentiful. So, I usually will pick like July or August. I have a lot growing out there in July or August, but it really makes you think, what do I really, really need? I have a funny story. We just had come off $100 month and we went to get family pictures done. And we got the pictures, and then I went back and talked to the gentleman that was selling them to us, and he sold me on this big package, like $1,000 worth of pictures. I came home and told my husband about it. He said, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "I have gone an entire month without going out, without getting anything from a restaurant, from anything, and I have not gotten a Frosty, a Wendy's for a month." And I had to kind of laugh, but it's true. He had not spent a penny on anything for an entire month, and here I was going to spend $1,000 on the pictures. And we both looked at each other and we said, "Well, that was kind of silly, wasn't it? We don't need $1,000 for the pictures." And we didn't spend it. And so it gives you some perspective in your life as well. The other challenge that I love to do that I don't talk about in the book, but I'll tell you about, is called a lights out challenge. It's one of my very favorites. We actually turn off all of our electricity in our home except for our freezer and fridge. So we don't want food to go bad. And we just live without lights on for a day and just see, what is it like. It's quite entertaining and instructive as well. You'll find at how dependent we are. So these are some things I just challenge you to do. And that's the last challenge in the book, is this $100 challenge, where you put all of these pieces together into this $100 month and see how you do. So we made it. It's 8 o'clock on the dot. I just really want to thank you for being here. I really want to thank you for your interest in self-sufficient living. I hope that we can continue having this conversation through the coming year as we learn how to live self-sufficiently together. And I hope you share things with me. I've been doing a lot on Instagram right now. So there's a website, livingwellwithdrmichelle.com. But on Instagram, if you find me there, I think it is Living Well with Dr. Michelle. I'm just learning. I'm such an Instagram newbie. I've not hardly done anything, but I've decided it's really a fun place to share what I'm doing live, while I'm doing it. I see that I have some. If there's questions, please ask them. I'm happy to answer. I'm just seeing if there's anyone here. It looks like it's just Aubrey talking about questions, but I will answer questions. If you have them, go ahead and throw them in the chat right now. Like I said, the program that you can sign up for, we're going to be sending you information on, will have in-depth meetings on each of these topics. Typically what I do is I tackle 2 topics per every 2 months. So every 2 months we'll do one for an hour, and I take 2 chapters at a time, and we really dive into it and get in depth into your questions and the things you want to know about. And I just want to support you. I just want to be here supporting you, helping you, all of those things. And I just want you to be able to live self-sufficiently. I'm so excited that you've been here. I don't see any questions. I think that we've just been kind of high level and not deep into question topics at this time around, but we will start probably next month. I've got to get my schedule together, but probably next month on these in-depth topics. Please buy the book. Like I said, not for my benefit, just for your benefit. Please buy the book. Please tell friends, family, anybody that you know that would be interested in these things to buy the book as well. Again, not for my benefit, for their benefit. I just want them to learn. I want them to learn. I want them to know these things, and I want them to be able to live self-sufficiently for that security, for that peace of mind, for that, being prepared for whatever might come. And honestly, because it's just fun. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you love the book. Let me know, and please put a review on Amazon if you get it. I've had some people saying, "Yes, my book came today. I'm so glad." Put a review on Amazon. Tell us what you think of it so that other people can find it too. Thank you all, and have a fabulous night, and we'll be keeping in touch and teaching you about more things to come.